Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones, and on today's program, Dear Black Breed, London Breed supporters. This week we had the inauguration of Mayor London N. Breed as the mayor of San Francisco. And during her inauguration, yeah, I thought it was an okay ceremony. I was very impressed by the group C Notes, but it went downhill once Mayor Breed spoke. I was impressed that there was a convocation by uh, two ministers. Oh, Rabbi hit the nail on the head when she pointed out the fact that there's racist treatment against blacks in San Francisco. Well, why didn't London Breed mention any of that? Now, when I say dear black London Breed supporters, it's not that I am with without understanding. London Breed was put into office by a whole lot of white and Asian votes. I get that. There's not that many black people voting in San Francisco, much less here to vote. But San Francisco is racist. And the fact that we have a black mayor to cover it up reminds me of something that someone told me about Juvenile Hall recently. Juvenile Hall has a whole bunch of white people running in and out of the facility to minister, to help, guide, or do whatever work paid um, with the young people up at Juvenile Hall, the detainees. But if I was to say Juvenile Hall is racist and you should go up there and investigate, the trick is they got a real black secretary. So when you come into the hall, you see this black secretary, and then you think, oh, there's those names. That Alan Jones, he lied to us. Well, the fact that we have a black mayor is no cover up for the fact that we have racism. What I object to was in London Breed's uh, inauguration speech, about 15 minutes. It was as bland as eggs with no salt or a cookie with no sugar. And the fact that she had an opportunity to call out those in city government who are oppressing black city workers, and she didn't. She talked about the homeless. She talked about housing. She talked about the drug addiction. She talked about progressives and moderates and stuff like that. She even took a swipe at the president. Well, I'm sick and tired of everybody who takes a swipe at the president in San Francisco for his racist acts, but they don't mention the racism that's going on here in San Francisco. And for London Breed to start off, I hope it's just she's getting started and she has full intention on addressing the racism here in San Francisco. But I just didn't see any indication of that. Sure, when you listen to the speech, and I highly recommend that you go either to the San Francisco Chronicle or SF Gov TV and pull up the inauguration speech. You will see that towards the end, she basically dances around the word racism or racist treatment by saying, I know there's some people who don't think that they're this or don't think they're that. And she just danced all around it without saying exactly, calling a spade, or just basically saying, I am aware that San Francisco is racist, and I am aware of the racist treatment against city employees by those above them. She didn't say any of that. And I'm saying that that's a red flag for me. And it should be a red flag for all you black people who supported her. Now, when I say all you black people, I understand people get a little nervous, and white folks, they get a little nervous too for other reasons. Number one, they don't like the term racist. They get all nervous because you mention racist or racism. They think you're talking about them. Well, if you want to just be whatever, thin skinned or whatever, I understand it. But my point is, black people, you need to take a look and a real, just, I don't know how I can say this more clear, but you really need to do your homework. I could have pulled up the inauguration and presented it on this program, but I didn't. I want you to search it out. It's only 15 minutes. Well, excuse me. Her speech is only 15 minutes. And it basically was a nothing speech. It was any one of the top candidates for mayor could have delivered that same speech, and it would have been accepted by many in the crowd. Now, there was about 1,000, a little more, people who came to witness this swearing in of the mayor. Many of those people were black. So for her to know that she's looking at a sea of black San Franciscans who supported her, and not to even throw them a bone by saying, yes, I know that there's racism here. Let me put it another way. For those of us who know that it was a scandalous white privilege that ousted our black mayor on January 23rd, in a fairness for the upcoming election reason is what they called it. I don't know. Well, first of all, this is something that really irks me. How can you have this black woman who knows that there were white forces amongst her colleagues, 4 of them, that ousted her as mayor on racial reasons alone? They said that it was one of they tried to blame Ron Conway, a rich white man, for the reason why they ousted her. Let's not be stupid. The issue is Ron Conway gave more money to the man that they installed as temporary mayor than he gave to London Breed. So that couldn't have been it. Then there's the fact that the mayor, Mark Farrell, now, when you really look at it, he's supposed to be a moderate like London Breed. Well, why are you going to replace one moderate with another moderate? Mark Farrell jeopardized the whole moderate faction of city politics just so he could be mayor. Because let's say Kim or Leno won with this little old ploy by Mark Farrell. That meant that the progressives would have had not only the mayor's office, but the majority on the board of supervisors. I'm telling you, it was racism. Racism tried to stop London Breed from being mayor. And I'll call it out. I think that it was led by Supervisor Hillary Ronen. Now, is Hillary Ronen a racist? Her actions were. However, they may have been just a woman thing. I don't know. But I'm telling you, it smells like racism to me. The fact that London Breed knows good and well that it was racism that tried to prevent her from being mayor of San Francisco. And then for her to, I'm not saying she did, but then for her to turn her to turn her back on the black city employees who are suffering at the same time and into the future is what I'm warning against. And if you black supporters who happen to be city workers or no city workers, you need to pay attention. Pay attention to the fact that London Breed was a victim of racism. It didn't succeed, but you can't let her off the hook. You can't just, oh, we're so happy to have a black woman as mayor or a black person as mayor. No, you need to remind her daily what her colleagues tried to do to her is what you black supporters in city government in San Francisco are experiencing continually. Now, I understand that some of you black city workers don't live in the city. And you're not only being harassed by your superiors, but you have no voting interest in San Francisco. I get that. But since you still work here, you still have a voice here. And I suggest that you take your voice to London Breed, Mayor of San Francisco, in an email, letter, carrier pigeon, however, text message, you name it. You need to let her know that the days of racism in city employment are numbered. And the only way you're going to do it is if you flood City Hall with evidence of such. Now, I will say that I am currently in the, I'd say, beginning stages of rattling off 10 egregious acts of racism perpetrated by San Francisco leadership against members of the black community. I'm addressing these to the Board of Supervisors. Now, I've told 2 stories already, and I'm going to escalate up to the 10th story, and there is an 11th story. The 11th story is going to tie it all together. But I am saying that we don't need to wait for Alan, because Alan has 2 minutes at public comment at City Hall Board of Supervisors meeting to mention one story after another. We can send the message now. You can send your own personal experience of racism on the job to San Francisco, the city hall, to the mayor, addressed to the mayor's office. And if enough of them are sent, maybe she might get tired of so many there, and somebody might get ousted in city government that don't need to be there with their racist self. And might I add, next Wednesday, the 18th, I believe there's going to be a hearing that has been called by the city workers, basically pressuring the Board of Supervisors. A committee meeting is scheduled to address uh, racism against black workers here in the city. It's a 10 a.m. meeting, I believe, in the main Board of Supervisors chambers. Um, but if you think that something's going to happen as a result, that it ain't going to happen. Two of the three members on this who chair this committee were not London Breed supporters. And so for black employees who want to see something done about the racism here are going to present it to a committee that does not want to see London Breed to succeed as mayor. So why in the world would they take you serious if they're trying to get one of their own elected mayor of San Francisco in November 2019? I'm saying it ain't going to happen. And if they do send up anything, it's going to be stalled. Well, we need to do another report. Oh, let's do another report. Oh, let's do a report on that report. And let's do a report on that report that we reported on. And then you have December 2019 and we have another mayor. I mean, I know it'll be London Breed. And I'll say, when I sent a message to Supervisor London Breed this past week, I reminded her of the things that I'm just mentioning now. You were a victim. And don't turn your back on those who are currently victimized by San Francisco City Hall. But I ended it by telling her, God put you in room 200 for you not to hide from San Francisco racism, but for you to fight San Francisco racism from room 200. Because when you really look at it, the top candidates of the mayor for mayor could have fought homelessness, could have, as I said, gave that same speech she gave, dealt with the housing issue and the dirty streets and the drug use. They were issues of all the top candidates. But of all the top candidates, only one could have really championed racism in San Francisco against black people. Duh, London Breed. I think that it is really funny how, though I appreciate it, don't get me wrong, white people fight for and fight against racism against black people. But for them, for a black person who knows that they are were a victim of racism, to be put in a position to fight it in the top executive of San Francisco position, and for them to not even mention it in their inauguration, that's not good, people. That's not good at all. And I'm saying that we need to make sure that London Breed, who I just believe it was the best qualified person to run the city. I like her spirit. But most of her supporters were not black. If you had 100% of black people in San Francisco voting for London Breed, that is not enough to get her elected. Sure, the numbers might have pushed her over the top with the other votes, but the fact of the matter is it was business types, people looking out for their own selves, ideology lined up with London Breed. Racism had nothing to do with it. Racism may have helped her get elected for the fact that many people saw and were appalled at the ridiculous attempt to prevent her from being mayor with the shenanigans of January 23rd, where she was ousted. But the fact of the matter is white folks don't think too highly on fighting against racism. Not that they are for it, they're just scared of the subject. You know, and I think that there's a time where you have to just admit, you know, well, let me not state that. Let me say another thing. I know, and I've heard it too often, where people have said, well, I don't see race. Oh, you shouldn't talk about that. Oh, there's enough problems in the world. We don't need to discuss racism. We don't need to talk. You're only going to agitate. Well, as I said before, you cannot fight racism by not talking about it. And if you can, show me the way. You got my email. Show me the way. The fact of the matter is you cannot fight it by not talking about it. And so for white folks who promote this, oh, I don't think we should talk about this, is really, they're just guilt-ridden. And they're ashamed. Sure, there's some real shameful things that white folks have done in the past that I feel bad for some white folks who have to take on the blame for what their forefathers did. There's no reason for you to cower away from fighting the issue as if it's going to just dissolve into thin air. It don't work that way, folks. It just don't. We have to stand up, call a spade, if you will, call a racist, and get them out of the way. And the only way that the mayor of San Francisco is going to be able to do just that, do her job, is she's got to have evidence. And in the position as mayor, you just cannot expect her to reasonably know even 1% of the racist treatment that black employees in the city of San Francisco have to endure, because what that's going to do, they have to go, it has to be filtered up to the mayor. She has an administration. She has a whole bunch of people who are working for her, but for the subject to get right to her desk, it must be overwhelming. One act from one story from Alan Jones ain't gonna get to the top of the mayor. Now, if the Chronicle and the Examiner start telling some of these stories, that's a little extra help, but we can't. They're racist too, so we can't expect that to happen. But if we continue to flood, we don't have to protest at City Hall. And quite frankly, I'm tired of the fact that I see City Hall employees, wait a minute, supervisors on the steps of City Hall saying San Francisco's racist, but in the halls of City Hall, they don't do anything about it. So how can you, on the steps, say, yeah, San Francisco's racist, but when it comes down to doing the work, by passing legislation that hinders or prevents racist acts from happening, where's the laws? Here's one suggestion. In city lawsuits, there's a ton of them where black people have sued the city and various departments for racist acts. And they've won. The city's paid out millions. But there's these things called non-disclosure agreements. That's in any lawsuit. I sued somebody, and part of the settlement was I had to sign something saying that preventing me from saying how much I got from the lawsuit. Well, I get it, because if you go blabbing that around, it's bad for business. But in city business, that should not be the case. There should be a law in San Francisco to where city government cannot, as an agreement, prevent people from stating how they were treated, their racist acts against city employees or the city and county of San Francisco. Now, I'm saying that I'm sure that there's going to be some slick lawyers who figure out a way, you can't do that. Well, I'm saying I think you can. To have it to where it is easier for us to track San Francisco racism. That's what we need. I had to dig deep. Well, wait a minute. I take that back. While digging deep, I, on my cell phone, accidentally bumped into a city settlement. And it was a racist issue. And so what I'm saying here is if it had not been for the good eyes that I had when I was scrolling looking for something, I would have never known how the city paid out in a particular lawsuit against a department of the city. We need to make sure that those things are not hidden. Sure, they're in public. Got 20 people in the room. That's not a way to get it out there. We need to make sure that it is easier for people to track that down. Keep a real good record of it. That's a start, people. And our mayor should be one to help that along. Until next time.